My Decameron, 10 days of the coronavirus plague in Queens. Day 1, wherein I wonder if I will survive my family. It is raining, but somehow I feel optimistic. I stepped outside to pick up the New York Times lying on the stoop. I said to myself, I will read this, hard copy, like old times. And then I will know what I should know of the world beyond this house. Then I shall make the most of this day while I live, sequestered, perforce. What might I produce today? What might I discover in my studies? In this bleak time, there is the gift of time and isolation for me so far. I must use it well. Perhaps the heart is logical. The more it brushes death, the closer death feels, the more it insists on living. I am lifted. Then my wife yelled at me from the office window on the 3rd floor. Mark, I need your help here on Google Classroom. I looked up at her face stuck between the barely open window and the sill, nodded stoically, and went back inside. I washed my hands. Our small and nasty dog was then at my heels, barking. I moved to the back of the house and let her out. My 3 pet birds were singing for the night blanket to be removed and their food trays refilled. I moved to their cage to begin this work. My daughter Nora on the 2nd floor called from her bed, asking with attitude if I knew where a charger was. I did not answer as I rejected her tone. I realized then that I would have to take our elder daughter Anna's morning medicine up to her 3rd floor room, and I took a pill from the bottle in the high cabinet, which always takes a few moments to get the safety cap open. I went to the sink then and began washing and refilling the birds' dishes. They kept singing, which to them is singing, but to me it is screaming. And as I approached the cage with their dishes, I saw that they were all 3 looking at me. The 20-year-old African gray said my name, clear as day, in a perfect imitation of my own voice, without subjective expression of any kind. It was like a fact. Mark. I took her out and put her on the stand, and then she said, shower. I told the parrot that I had already showered. She said nothing at first, but when I turned my back, she said my name 4 more times, faster and louder each time. The dog outside the glass of the sliding door barked repeatedly to re-enter. As I struggled to open and close the sliding door holding all 4 of the birds' trays, my wife yelled again, Google Classroom. Nora repeated, louder, about the charger, yelling this time that everyone uses her charger and that I must be the one who now has it. The dog, trained by my wife to be rewarded just for stepping outside for a moment, returned to my heels to growl at me for the treat she feels she deserves. Anna from her room, somehow knowing perhaps that I had become frozen in a state of paralysis near the kitchen Alexa device beside the toaster, dropped in and asked if she could watch The Breakfast Club on her laptop. I clutched her pill in my hand. I realized then I'd forgotten I had it. I found that it was half melted into an orange stain in my palm. It was at that moment that every living creature in this place was yelling, or barking, demanding, or asking me to do something for them, to decide something for them. But I, like Hamlet, unpregnant of my cause, could not. To be or not to be? That is the question. Day 2, wherein I find my face very fat. Each day I begin by saying to myself, your face is fat, and it's the beer. Tonight you can't have beer. Let's use this terrible time to lose the face fat. So each morning I have celery juice, coffee, and a small lunch at around 1. I feel very healthy. I use resistance bands to work out. It feels good to know that tomorrow I'll be a bit skinnier in the face. Then at about 7, I say to myself, I know that 2 beers a day is considered healthy for an adult male. So I open my first Brooklyn Ale, and when I'm finished, I open my second. I feel great, and very nostalgic for all my friends near and far. I think about the 1990s. Then I feel hungry. I watch the news or help the girls with their work. Then maybe an IPA or a third Brooklyn Ale, or who knows, maybe something else that's in the fridge. Then I eat enough for 3 male adults and am so full I can't talk well and need to lie down. I head for the sofa. This is when we have wonderful family time. I lie silent on one side as we watch The Walking Dead or Homeland. I fall asleep before the end of the episode, so later, as I pull myself upstairs, the girls tell me about what happened in the show. I'm so fat by now, it looks like one of the volleyballs from the teams I coach has bounced up my shirt and lodged there. I brush my teeth and floss, then go to bed, reading 2 or 3 times a paragraph of whatever novel I'm reading. I sleep deeply, shifting only when my restless leg syndrome starts and I kick the dog or my wife. I awake sometimes after 8 or 9 or 10. Tonight, I will not have beer. Day 3, wherein I attempt to make a donation. I began to feel that being in the house all day was helping me to note what was unnecessary, and to better envision a house without these things. I decided I would donate all unnecessary things. I called the Vietnam Veterans Association. They have a good system. You call them, they come pick up whatever you put in front of the house in black garbage bags and toss it into a truck. They were due to come this morning, so I packed some bags last night and put them outside. I put some of my old shirts and pants and some basement junk in them, like puzzles and board games and old school science projects and weird toys. Also a foot-tall, hard wooden rocking chair in the basement that said Anna, against which I have smashed my shins over the years. Only a toddler could fit in it, and only a toddler named Anna would feel comfortable in it for very long. I have to say, it felt good to see that sucker go. Later, my wife came downstairs from the office where she'd been all day on Google Classroom and went down to the basement. In a minute, she called out, "Mark, where's the small rocking chair that says Anna?" So soon it was right back down there as usual, ready to take out a shin. Then she asked me why I brought it outside in the rain in the first place. I told her about the donations. She grew agitated. I asked what was wrong. She said she wanted to approve everything I was giving away, and now must go outside in the dark and the rain and inspect the bags. I didn't ask why she didn't trust me. I already knew. One time long ago in the happy apartment rental days when we thought a 3-day blackout was rough, she would fill 1 garbage bag each week with her work clothes that needed to be taken to the dry cleaner. One morning I thought it was for donation, and since I was headed to see my friend George in Hell's Kitchen anyway, I dropped off many thousands of dollars worth of nice work clothes to the Salvation Army. At the time, she was very upset, and so we went back to the Salvation Army, but the lady there said everything I dropped off had sold like hotcakes. Kristen cried, but I thought it was very wrong to cry about clothes. And I said maybe we should break up since my values as an artist were very different than this display of materialism and quite inconsiderate of the joy that these clothes must have brought the needy. She said she worked hard for those clothes, and if I was really an artist, I should probably not get into the habit of talking like a philanthropist, especially one that gives away stuff by accident. I think after that, she never trusted my judgment about most things, but certainly when it came to bags of stuff. We went outside and opened the bags. We were quiet at first, but soon I said, I've grown up a lot, you know, and understand now that someone might have a job where they need to wear nice clothes and they get dry cleaned. I added that I myself even have a job almost like that. She said she had no idea what I was talking about, but please shine the cell phone light into the bags. She sifted through, and it was cold, and it took forever. I carried a lot of crap back into the house, but she did approve of the old science projects and all of my old shirts and pants and my worn-out belt from Old Navy as good choices to be donated. I felt pretty good about this and our marriage. The VVA never came this morning, I assume because of the plague, and I just brought all the bags back inside. Maybe I'll just keep all of it. Day 4, wherein I attempt to thank an essential worker. Governor Cuomo has been great on TV. My wife said that she would sleep with him. I said I wouldn't go that far, but maybe I'd like to sleep next to him. Like everyone else, he reminds us when he's on TV to think hard about the heroes on the front lines, the doctors and nurses and EMTs, techs, the cops and the firemen, and we do. We watch the videos of people giving standing ovations from their balconies in Italy, honking horns and flashing lights and gratitude and banging pots and clapping their hands at 7 o'clock. The other day, Governor Cuomo also said, we must remember everyone else out there working too, keeping the city running. He said we should say, thank you for working, when we see the train conductor, say, or the food delivery guy, the pharmacist, the grocer, and the mail carriers. He reminded us that they are heroes too. For the last days of the plague, I try to get outside at least once a day to change the scenery. For instance, if it's nice weather like today, I might sit in my car parked in front of my house with the windows closed and listen to 1010 winds. I slept a little later since I was up late watching Pasolini's The Decameron on the Criterion channel, so it was already 11:30 a.m. when I went to the car and had some of my home-brewed coffee with almond milk. As I often do at this stage of the day, fresh from sleep, I felt zestful and full of personal ambition. It wears off late afternoon usually, but I always enjoy this first stage of the day, thinking what I might get accomplished. I noticed in the mirror that the mail carrier was making his way up our sidewalk. The mail's been coming earlier since all this started, and here it was. I watched as the mail carrier pushed his car with one hand and with the other held a bundle of envelopes. I'd lose him each time he stopped, turned to walk toward each house. I'd lose him in the mirror for a moment, then returned to his car and kept going. He was a black man in his 30s. Not our usual carrier, who was an older Asian lady named Jo, who once found our dog a couple blocks away and delivered her to the house like she delivers the mail that won't fit in the mailbox. Just drop her on the stoop and ring the doorbell. As the mail carrier got closer in the mirror, only 2 houses away from us, I could see he was wearing a scarf pulled over his face to serve as his mask. Maybe he had a real surgical mask under the scarf, but I couldn't tell. He also had on his blue USPS cap, and so all that was visible was the very top of his nose and his eyes. I decided then that I would thank him for working. This was exactly what the governor wanted. I myself am able to do all my teaching online, get paid as usual, not even leave the house and risk anything. This person visited everyone in the neighborhood during a plague. He really deserved my admiration. As he got to the sidewalk in front of my house, I took a nice sip of my coffee and stuck it in the cup holder. I pulled my mask from under my chin to cover my mouth and nose and opened the door. I think I scared him a little when I popped out like that. He stopped short with his cart for a moment, but kept going, like someone who was used to sudden movements in the periphery while on the job. "Hey, brother," I said. "Thank you for working." He didn't look at me, so I figured he couldn't hear me through my mask. I pulled it down to say it louder. I felt very warm inside. "Hey, thank you for working." He turned away, left his cart on the sidewalk, and approached our mailbox, dropped in a few things, and turned back around. "Thank you for working." He looked up. All I could see was his eyes, but I don't think he made any facial expression under his scarf because the eyes didn't change shape at all. "Thank you for working," I said again. He kept walking to his cart and just stared at me. Even when he got to his cart and gripped the handle, he was still staring at me. Like he had to keep an eye on me. Like I might make a sudden move. "Thank you for working." He held his gaze another moment, then nodded. In that moment, in his eyes, though, I knew what he was saying to me. His eyes were saying, "Listen, thanks, but if I could be sitting home right now with my first coffee of the day at near noon with some hipster milk in it, I would. If I could do this job online like you, do your job online, or not do it all, I would. But I can't. I hate this fucking job. Every day, but especially right now. And if you don't know that, you're an idiot. You might have said to me, 'Hey, brother, I'm really sorry you're working. This really sucks for you. I can't imagine being you, and I'm so glad I'm not you. I'm guilty for 1,000 reasons, and I'm saying thank you for working to make myself feel better.'" He nodded again. Maybe he smiled, but it was hard to tell. And he walked on. I was red in the face, but I was still smiling. That's what I do when I make a fool of myself. His back was to me as he got to the next house. "You're a hero," I said. I waited for the red in my cheeks to fade a little before I went back inside, still smiling fake. Day 5, wherein I play Jesus Christ. Last night, I had just taken some selfies in our bathroom wearing my jockstrap and cup as a surgical mask when I got a text from the rector at our Episcopalian church a few blocks away. He asked me if I'd like to be in the to-be-recorded Zoom reading of the Passion of Christ as told in the book of Matthew. It would be streamed to the congregation on Palm Sunday. I said to myself, hell yes, and wrote back yes. I reread his text and found that I'd be playing Judas. Now, I have a thing for Palm Sunday. It's where my name comes from. Dante in the 14th century made up the word palmieri, palmers, to label the Palm Sunday pilgrims headed to Jerusalem on pilgrimage from Florence in this very season of Lent. There was a bit of a joke in there, as these pilgrims were likely to be bum phonies with their palms out. Get it? asking for donations from the folks of Florence, where the Decameron is set during the plague. So many of the Palmieri were probably not really holy pilgrims, but just good scammers headed off to have some vino. Our Zoom meeting was set for 7:30, and I logged on nice and early. I was in our attic upstairs. I'm a Screen Actors Guild and Actors Equity Association vested member, so I know what I'm doing. I highlighted my Judas lines beforehand and even gave him a run in the mirror. The cast was made up of about 10 readers and involved some parishioners that don't really use Zoom that much or even computers that much, so it took a good hour plus to get everyone online and then framed nicely in their windows on the screen. It all went by fast because we made jokes and laughed a lot. A few minutes before we started, someone mentioned that she was playing Judas. Now, I've been in the theater long enough to know that this was a moment where one must tread carefully. This could be embarrassing for her, I thought, and I didn't want to hurt feelings. Despite this wisdom, I blurted out, "I thought I was Judas." But I was quickly informed by everyone who'd read their text from the pastor more carefully that I was actually playing Jesus. Like any actor, I like to be able to connect with characters I play. Judas would have worked well, and I have a soft spot for him too. He took a 30 silver piece fee to turn over the Messiah to the authorities, but it was already predicted by the prophets. It had to happen, so why not make a few bucks to help things along? That's what he did. I also like the role of Peter, Jesus' main pal, who chickens out and denies his friend 3 times, which I totally would have done too if being friends with any of my pals meant I'd be crucified, which Peter was eventually, upside down even. I'd even take on Pilate, the Roman governor who couldn't really understand why the people would choose to free a thief instead of the big miracle maker. But he said to himself, "It's not my problem." He washed his hands of it. All these people make perfect sense to me. But Jesus Christ. Well, we started. I hardly had a chance to glance at my Jesus lines. I'm not really a superstitious person, but it is a time of plague after all, and all of mankind is right now at its most helpless, so I thought maybe I should really concentrate, just in case there is a man upstairs who's tuning in on Palm Sunday. I was focused, but I couldn't help enjoying the chance to do some acting, which I used to do a lot of, but haven't done in some time. The Passion kicks off before the famous Last Supper, when Judas makes his deal with the bad guys. Already I was envying the vestry member playing Judas, but that made me feel guilty and a little frightened, frankly, since maybe the real Jesus would be offended that I, playing Jesus, envied someone playing Judas, and maybe even send this virus my way to show me what's what. The Bible was full of stories of God sending plagues to show people what's what, so this was serious business, maybe. We get to my first line. "I will keep the Passover at your house with my disciples." Now, I couldn't help but to think that with all the new rules around this horrible COVID-19, that this, having dinner with one's disciples at your house, just would be a bad idea right now, here in Lent 2020. I try not to let that kind of thing affect my performance, but I think I was a little shaky, feeling so socially irresponsible in character. Just 3 lines later, I had to say, "The one who has dipped his hand into the bowl with me will betray me." Well, Jesus, I thought, whoever's dipping your hand in your bowl's already betrayed you big time, if it's 2020. Then lines later, it became almost too much to bear without laughing. "Take this, eat my body, drink it, all of you. Drink from this same chalice, all of you." I was sweating. It was hot in the attic office because it was a chilly evening and our house's heat was on. It's an old house, about 90 years old, and the first floor is really drafty. Heat rises, as we all know, so to make the place tolerable in chilly weather downstairs, you have to jack up the thermostat for the whole house. If you're all the way upstairs in the attic office, it's like hell. By the time the Romans arrest me, my throat was dry. I had a dry cough. I was sure I'd been inflicted by you-know-what. Still, I love acting. It was pretty cool to hear the Roman centurion call me God's son after I was martyred. But it occurred to me for sure, if any bunch of like-minded pals got together and did this right now, it would truly be one of their last suppers. I'm glad I did this. I miss acting.